아까 우리가 말했던 그런 샹하이 랜더스의 고향, 그죠? 많은 욕망과 꿈과 또 여러 가지 사랑과 또 이런 일상들이 교차하는 곳인데요. 이제 이 TCK 삶에 대해서 한번 이야기를 좀 나눠보도록 하겠습니다. 우리 작가님께서도 한국에서 태어났는데 또 미국에서 어릴 때 가셔가지고 어, 성장을 하셨고, 그다음에 또 이제 그 중국계 미국인 남편과 결혼해서 이제 상해에 오셔가지고 여기서 두 아이 낳고 기르면서 또 일을 쭉 해오셨어요. 그래서 이제 대학이나 사회에서 직접 경험했던 어떤 TCK로서의 힘들었던 점이라든지 혹은 강점은 무엇이었는지 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
I think one benefit, obviously, is language. I think having multiple languages is always a benefit. Language, for example, in the book was always is always kind of like a key to unlocking kind of secrets or kind of deepening relationships between the people who speak them. And in my life as well, yeah, language has always been so essential in opening doors and creating kind of possibilities for me. And I also like loved to study languages. I studied Russian literature in college. And so I think, yeah, just kind of the ability to access more cultures, more parts of the world is an incredible gift that like third culture kids often have. Um, Challenges. I mean, I think one of the big challenges is the idea of like home. Like, where is my home? Where do I belong? And after school closes, where do I go back to? And maybe my parents moved somewhere else, and so where's the home now? Um, I think that can be something difficult to navigate, especially in your like teens and your 20s when you're making decisions about kind of who you want to be as an individual and you want to kind of access memories of your past, but maybe you don't have physical access to them anymore. But I would say, just to make everything positive, uh, that actually I think as an adult and as a mother and as someone who has a family of my own now, and at that like a mixed family, kind of a mixed culture family, I think that it can be a great advantage to kind of pick and choose things that you like from the cultures that you like and to kind of have a lot of ideas from places and cultures of what you value and what you want as a family. So that can be a kind of richness from which to build upon as well.
분의 성장기를 이제 그 외국에서 보내시면서 그 TCK라는 것이 본인의 정체성에 그게 좀 어떤 영향을 준 게 있다면 어떤 게 있을까요?
I think I would first and foremost identify as Korean American, although I've lived in Shanghai now for almost 10 years. Um, America is where I grew up, and I guess where the foundation of my personality was formed. That being said, I spent some time like in Korea. I went to international school for a short period of time in Korea when I was in primary school, and I was kind of back and forth. And after college, I taught in Korea, and then back to New York, and then back to Shanghai. So I've always been kind of toggling between the two continents. On a very practical note, it widened my you know sphere of dating when I was young. So just like the number of people that I met and the different kinds of people that I met and the way that I envisioned my future and possibilities of my, future life and where I could possibly live, who I would be sharing my life with. I think that living in many places, it probably opened up my sense of tolerance and preference and
그리고 여기 지금 질문이 하나 올라와 있어요. 이제 작가님은 국적이 없다고 느끼신 적이 있었나요? 사회에서 소속감에 있어서 길을 잃었다고 느낀 적이 있는가? 네, 이런 질문이 올라왔거든요.
I mean, I think that when I was younger and I was growing up in the US, I definitely felt like I was American, for better or for worse. But I think now that I've lived in Asia for so long, cumulatively almost half my life, I don't have this sense of I have to go back and live in, say, the United States, or I have to go back and live in one place. It's not so much that I feel lost because I know that on some level I belong there, I have family there, in the same way that on some level I belong to Korea and I have family there. But I don't feel beholden to those places, I suppose. And on one sense, you could think of it as being lost. In another way, you can think about it as being sort of liberated from that sense from that pull of return. So when I think about my future, and if I think about where, for example, I would want my kids to grow up and be educated, what culture I want them to live in, I really don't find myself limited by those two options. Yeah, like especially in Korea, I think in my 20s as a Korean American, I definitely felt like, oh gosh, like where do I fit in this country? And I'm so used to this kind of like casual American way, but some of the hierarchical social structures are very stifling to me. And I'm sure that maybe some kids who grew up in Shanghai, which is similarly more relaxed in terms of social dynamics, might feel a kind of, I think that, like I said, like it happens. I think it's a stronger sense when you're really trying to define yourself in your, let's say, like your early 20s, and also your self is also fresh and pliable and I don't know, hardened and cynical and formed by experiences, both good and bad, and openness to it's that vulnerability to the world that also sometimes creates like a longing to be rooted in one place and to have that kind of protection, perhaps, as one gets older, hopefully goes through more experiences in life, lives in many places, need for kind of external protection in a sense, may diminish.
네. 감사합니다. 사실 이 이야기 듣다 보니까 우리 딸이 엄마는 나중에 어디서 살고 싶어? 이렇게 물어본 적이 있어요. 그래서 저는 그 질문이 너무 좀 놀라웠어요. 아니, 뭐, 어디서 살긴 한국에서 그냥 사는 거지. 어디서 뼈를 묻는 거지. 이렇게 생각했는데, 아, 내가 살고 싶은 것을 선택할 수 있는 거였구나. 라는 생각을 그 질문에서 했었던 것 같아요. 그래서 우리 줄리 씨도, 우리 민 작가님도, 아, 우리 애들 나중에 어디서 키우지? 이제 이런 고민을 전에 하셨거든요. 그래서, 아, 그런 시대구나. 우리는 이미. 그래서 길을 잃었다기보다는 어떻게 보면은 좀 이렇게 좀 자유로운 그런 포지션일 수도 있다는 생각이 좀 들어요. 그래서 지금 이 이야기를 듣고 있는 우리 상하이 TCK들에게 우리 작가님이 해주고 싶은 이야기가 있다면 어떤 게 있을까요?
Yes, so even though I've lived in Shanghai for 9 years and I'm married a Shanghainese and I have children who speak fluent Shanghainese, and I actually never imagined it. I never thought that I would move to China. Yeah, so I think that third culture kids on one level, they're kind of blessed with so much culture. And sometimes it feels like too much culture. I guess what I would say is that there are so many more, and you never know where life will take you. Maybe back to one of your countries and your cultures, but maybe somewhere totally beyond your imagination, or being familiar with multiple cultures is a blessing, and It's also something that can even be further expanded. So it's not like I'm a third culture kid and it's like too much and there's I can't handle it. It should be like this gift that your parents gave you. Third culture burden and a blessing, but doesn't have to be a burden and it can just be a jumping off point to more.
감사합니다. TCK의 삶은 선물이다. 네. 우리 두 번째 청미탐 할 때도 그 연준 양이 브라운대를 진학을 했는데, 그 브라운 대학이 백인 비율이 거의 90%래요. 근데 인종차별 겪어본 적 없느냐라는 질문에 당연히 겪는다. 그런 거 없다고 생각하고 오지는 말아라. 하지만 자기는 자기에 대해서 너무 잘 알고 있고, 그리고 뭐 중국이란 큰 나라에서도 살아봤고 미국 안에서 미국밖에 모르는 사람보다 더 넓은 세상을 살아봤기 때문에 나 너한테 해줄 수 있는 얘기가 되게 많아. 이제 이렇게 그 상황을 더 자기의 경쟁력으로 만들었었다는 얘기를 해줬던 기억이 나거든요. 지금 또 이제 채팅창에 질문이 올라왔어요. 우리 다음 주제가 벌써 올라왔네요. 학창 시절, 그리고 작가로서의 꿈, 그리고 청소년들에게 하고 싶은 말. 이제 이게 주제인데요. 우리 오늘의 마지막 주제예요. 근데 이제 우리 채팅창에 벌써 질문이 좀 올라와 있거든요. 지금 하버드에는 어떻게 들어가게 되었다고 생각하시나요? 이제 매우 어렵다고 하는데 자신이 생각하는 이유는 무엇인가요? 그리고 하버드를 나온 것이 인생에 어떤 의미를 주었다고 생각하시나요? 라는 질문이 들어와 있어요.
For me, at least, I was a very focused student. So when I was in high school at my sophomore year, I finished the math requirement and then I never took math again. And I always took the very basic science courses, did a lot of English, creative writing, independent projects. And I also had a great mentor at school who pushed me to do writing competitions within the school and at national levels. I think I was quite a focused student who knew who I was very early on. I was also a very lucky student who had the support of great teachers. And so I think that being passionately interested in something, working towards accomplishments in that field, and then being able to articulate that passion, I think those are, at least from my experience, what helped me to get into Harvard. In the end, how did attending those schools impact my life? Tremendously.
나온 것이 인생에 어떤 의미를 주었다고 생각하는가? 예, 이 질문에 대해서도 답변 부탁드립니다.
You know, if I didn't graduate from Harvard, probably no one would come to this. Maybe no one will be coming to this meeting. So there's that. And, you know, definitely from being able to get my foot in the door at interviews or, you know, just practical things like that, it helps a lot. I mean, I think that's probably the biggest thing, you know, just the way that probably people perceive you, for better or for worse. It's very problematic, but I think it's definitely something that is real.
어떤 수준의 성취라도 할 수 있는 일정한 수준 이상의 성취를 할 수 있는 사람으로 믿음을 준다. 저도 그런 얘기는 들은 것 같아요. 어떤 종류의 인턴도 하버드 출신이라면 일단 오케이 한다라는 얘기를 예, 다른 데서 본 것 같습니다. 3프로 TV에서. 네. 어쨌든 네. 또 이제 질문이 올라왔거든요. 한국의 명문 대학이 요구하는 선발 기준에 대해서 이제 하버드를 포함해서 본인은 어떻게 이해하시느냐라고 이제 질문이 들어왔는데, 참고로 그 제가 학생들하고 이제 그 합격자들 스펙을 이렇게 조사하다 보니까요, 좀 흥미로운 걸 발견했어요. 브라운대가 하버드보다 그러니까 성적으로서는 스펙이 더 높더라고요. 그러니까 그 얘기는, 하버드는 성적만을 뽑지 않는다는 얘기겠죠. 그죠? 그래서, 그 미국의 명문대학이 요구하는 선발 기준, 명문대학이 요구하는 인재는 어떤 것인지 한번 말씀 부탁드리겠습니다.
I think they are inevitably going to change. Um, I think that there are a lot of traditional ways of choosing students that, yeah, are likely to change in the next decades. Um, and so, yeah, like if I think about my my children and where they will go to school, um, I have no idea, for example, what being a legacy will mean in the future and what being Asian. I have no idea what those factors will have in terms of value or weight in the admissions process. It's a really frustrating state of affairs, and it's a very like anxiety-inducing state of affairs. There hasn't been much clarity in, what these universities stand for. But I also, of course, I feel for the universities who are trying their best to balance so many interests.
네, 뭐랄까요. 선발 기준이 이제 좀 앞으로 바뀌게 될 것 같다고 말씀을 하셨는데, 그럼 조금 질문을 바꿔서 본인은 왜 선발이 됐다고 생각하시는지, 본인이 갖는 남다름은 무엇일까요?
So I was very much like this very creative and like hyper productively creative student. I always had a very strong desire to like live a creative life and like produce from a very young age. And the fact that I did a lot, throughout high school was probably what made me stand out from other applicants who said they wanted to, study English, for example. Yeah, probably those things.
안 그래도 들어가시기 전에 러시아어를 공부하신 건가? 궁금했었는데 이미 관심이 좀 많이 있으셨군요. 그 채팅창에 앞으로 도전이나 변화를 계획하시는 게 있나요? 라는 질문이 있는데 그 전에 지금까지 살아오시면서 가장 기억나는 도전이 무엇이었었는지 궁금합니다.
The first book that I finished in my early 20s, I actually did sign with a great literary agent in New York, and I was really excited. I thought that was the beginning of my career and that I would, jumpstart into literary superstardom. And it didn't happen. The book didn't sell. It wasn't commercial enough, all kinds of reasons. And I was incredibly disappointed. At that point, I was in the second half of my 20s, and I had worked on it for a while. It wasn't going anywhere. My agent wasn't planning to kind of do anything with it anymore. So that was a really huge disappointment in my kind of, I don't know, the start of my literary career. I had like a real crisis because I had to kind of ask myself, well, what should I do next? Should I keep writing? Am I just not good enough? Should I like wait till I'm older? And like, it was around that time that I decided that I would get an MFA and go back to school to do a master's in fiction, and to like not necessarily change as a writer, but to also like put myself in a new situation that would push me to write more and differently. And so yeah, I guess change as a writer. And so, but somehow if you really love it, you have to kind of keep it and cherish it and find small wins that will.
미국, 한국 또 중국에서 살아봤으니까 이 문화 비교를 잘 하실 것 같아요. 그래서 중국 문화의 장점 좀 알고 싶어요.
At least in Shanghai, I've felt like there is a kind of, I guess one way to put it is casualness to kind of relationships, kind of like you can talk to really anyone, and there's not this like sense of barrier. In that way, it's like in America, there's a kind of like American friendliness, for better and for worse. And, whereas in Korea, things are very structured and organized, but then there might be more of a distance between people, at least upon first encounter. I feel people are very flexible. Like I feel in so many aspects. For example, I feel Chinese are very eager adopters of technology and new innovation. So you see like 80-year-old grandmas on Alipay and WeChat, and that's incredible. And I think that is a result of, kind of like historical fluctuations, but also kind of cultural, like, I don't know, like openness, flexibility, curiosity. I think those are some incredible aspects to life in China and Chinese culture, and what can make living here such a pleasure, and so easy too.
그 어린 학생이 작가가 꾸민 학생이 있어요. 그런데 이렇게 아이디어가 막 안 떠오르거나 막 막히고 막 이럴 때 어떻게 그런 문제를 푸시냐고. 그래서 우리 꼬마 작가 후보 이 친구도 뭔가 글을 써봤기 때문에 이런 질문도 할 수 있다고 생각하거든요. 막 이렇게 글이 안 써지고 막 막히고 이럴 때 어떻게 풀으셨냐요, 작가님?
I think the key is to always write, and to sometimes write something new, sometimes write beyond it, sometimes gamify it. Sometimes you just need to, put your pen to the page and just push through. You need to tell yourself like, I can do it and I'm going to do it. And then you just write crap for a few sentences, and hopefully, it just, it loosens up. Or maybe you put the pen down if it's really not working, and you read something that is something that you don't normally read, or read something that you truly love and that's always inspired you. Like for me, one of my favorite short stories is Vladimir Nabokov's Spring in Fialta, and there was a stretch of like months where every single day I like read that story before I started writing, and that was just because I love his highly stylized voice and what he does with language, that I wanted that to be in my mind further. But also sometimes when you can't trick yourself, you just need to like grit your teeth and do it too.
소감 어떻게 남겨주셨냐면, 누군가의 시선을 작품으로 만나는 것의 즐거움을 오랜만에 느꼈습니다. 상해는 당연히 익숙한 현장이었는데 나는 크게 사랑하지 않았던 상해를 누군가는 이렇게 자세히 볼 정도로 애정을 가지고 관찰을 해주고, 그게 나와 같은 이방인으로서의 상해 주민임이 크게 와 닿았다고. 네. 그리고 더 애정이 생겨나신 것 같다고요. 그리고 이 미팅 덕에 책에 대해서도 알게 돼서 읽어보고 싶고, 이제 오늘 뵐 수 있어서 다행이고, 청미탐에 감사하고, 다음에 작가 인터뷰가 있다면 또 찾아가서 뵙고 싶다고 그런 소감을 남겨주셨어요. 요 메시지는 제가 복사했다가 나중에 작가님한테 다시 전달해 드리기로 하고요. 오늘 작가님 어떠셨어요? 오늘 이제 예, 초대되어서 말씀하시면서 좀 힘들진 않으셨나요?
It was really lovely to talk with you and to answer questions. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다. 우리 여기 이제 계신 분에게, 마지막으로 우리 학생들한테, 특히 자라는 청소년한테 격려의 말씀 한마디만 부탁드리면서 마무리하겠습니다.
It's really hard to be a student and it's hard to be a teenager. It's like the worst. But hang in there and, do what you love, find a way to find out what you love, do as much as you can and do what you love with as much energy and effort as you can. Know yourself, try not to be too swayed by what others and adults need from you or want from you, if that's not true to you, try to be happy. It's not all about accomplishment. It's really about, being the best version of yourself, and discovering who that is.
아유, 이 늦게까지 함께 해주신 모든 분들 너무 감사하고요. 저희 이제 마무리하려고 합니다. 함께 해주셔서 감사합니다. 우리 꿈나무들, 이제 새로운 비전을 향해서 달려가도록 우리 모두 응원하고요. 작가님의 또 새로운 도전, 다음 책도 기대하면서 오늘 이상으로 마치겠습니다. 함께 해주셔서 감사합니다.